I started watching Landman because of a review I heard on NPR. It lauded the charming efforts of Billy Bob Thornton, the tipsy sexuality of Allie Lauder, and the hidden behind a smile ruthlessness of the Texas oil business. Now, I largely agree with that sentiment. Gentlemen cowboys navigating the New West, except this time the horses are $250,000 luxury vehicles. Southern charm and sensibilities combined with the complications of navigating a billion-dollar business within a multi-billion-dollar trade seems like a match that could certainly work. And it does. From the very first episode, the show reveals its hand and tells you exactly what it is. The cards don't change, you simply come to know them better and better throughout the season. More than that, and the central reason I'm making this video is, within Landman, more than any show I've seen of its kind, are glimpses of Americana, of the ever-changing specter of the American dream, of the men who work and die keeping that hope alive, and sometimes of the women and children they leave behind, too preoccupied with survival to dream at all. Landman, brought to life by Taylor Sheridan, joins an impressive and quickly growing roster of projects that includes one of my favorite movies of all time. A clear through line in the Sheridan projects I've watched is the rugged, unpolished, and often dangerous lives that his characters live in or are indoctrinated into. The world is bright and warm-blooded, lived in, but never bright enough to hide the gutters. Sheridan settings always put characters close to the margins. Close enough for those near the center to see exactly what those lines are made of. And in Landman, they're made of gold. The black kind. Although far more soapy and dramatic, less dark and hard-hitting than some of his film work, it still delivers moments of working-class reality that underpin the show's more salacious elements. Landman follows main character Tommy Norris, played by Billy Bob Thornton, longtime crisis manager and fixer for an oil company called MTEX, owned by Monty Miller, played by John Hamm. His daughter Ainsley, played by Michelle Randolph, his ex-wife Angela, played by Allie Lauder, and son Cooper, played by Jacob Laughlin, round out the main cast. It's very clear that Tommy is a much better landman than he is husband, as the show picks up with him living in the suburbs in a rented home with two friends and co-workers at MTEX Oil. His ex-wife and daughter live with her new husband Victor, and his son has dropped out of college to work a dangerous job in the oil fields at the same company he's a landman at. The two have a standoffish relationship from the beginning, as Cooper grew up when Tommy was still married to Angela, and their struggles during the oil bust destroyed their marriage. The fact that he's chosen such a dangerous job comes as a frustration and just another one of a million fires Tommy needs to put out, persuade, prevent, or feed. Much of the show's interesting drama comes from the Wild Wild West aspect of the oil business, as throughout the series, the drug cartels that frequently illegally use leased lands to receive shipments and steal equipment to make transports become a bigger and bigger problem, let alone his boss and longtime colleague, Monty, having health problems rearing their scary head again, or the lawsuits from an incident that underpins Cooper's storyline. And Cooper is where we start because through Cooper we see the horrific danger of working in the oil fields. This is also where my kinship for the show comes from. Now, I've never worked in an oil field and I never will, but before the job I hold now, I was a construction helper, which ranks among the most dangerous jobs in America for fatal injury. Not every day was dangerous, but there were no safety standards, there was no health insurance, no hard hats, and although I don't consider myself a tough person, my work ethic was formed on that job. My mental health was also never worse than it was during the period that I worked that job. I knew that every day spent at that job was a waste in terms of building a better future for myself. And I worked with people who didn't have other choices. But the show must go on. You gotta put food on the table. You get what you can and you keep going because there's nothing else to do but give up completely. And Landman captures glimpses of this grind perfectly. No one wants to do a job like that. It's why it pays so much for what could be considered unskilled labor. It's also why it attracts the kind of men it attracts. Men with nowhere else to go, or those lured in by a fistful of dollars, either to burn through until they get wise enough not to, or for family men trying to build a better life for themselves. This is something Cooper, Tommy Norris' son, experiences on his first day. Working with a crew, Tommy has asked to take his son through the paces, but also to make sure he makes it home in one piece. A crew consisting of Armando, Luis, and Elvio Medina. This is the key conceit of the ground level story of Landman, the razor edge between the American dream and disaster. In one of the industries where the common man can still get an honest pay for an honest day's work. Inextricably linked to that ideal is the mythological, masculine archetype of the settler or frontiersman, or in this case, the roughneck, plunging calloused hands into the earth and dragging the financial lifeblood of his family out of it. Every dollar is the direct result of manning the fuck up and engaging in gritty, back-breaking, muscle-aching labor and never letting it break you. But this is no longer in the context of riding west, sticking a flag in a patch of dirt, and creating something of your own from the ground up. This time, everything is owned by massive, multinational corporations, and the rugged but free archetypical man has now become grease in the wheels of an unfathomably large machine. His backbreaking labor now serves to make the dreams of CEOs and hedge fund managers come true, often at the expense of his own. And grease the wheel isn't entirely accurate. Lubricate the wheel is better because the fluid doesn't matter, as long as it flows. It could be sweat, it could be tears, and it definitely can be blood. The oil patch is fraught with danger. And sure enough, tragedy strikes. Indoctrinating Cooper into the stark reality of the job. Landman allows us a glimpse into the Medina's lives in a way that endears us in a short amount of time, and then they are gone. Just like that. Like an act of God. It's not the last time Cooper or the audience will be educated firsthand. And Tommy and the sheriff must now inform the Medina family that 3 of their loved ones have departed the world. The camera lingers outdoors, seemingly understanding that perhaps it's not our place to intrude on the grief of the family. This is the unwritten price tag of the American dream, and it's a price tag exclusively paid for by the working class. As Tommy gets acquainted with a fiery young lawyer that will be handling the legal show following the tragedy his son was a part of, Cooper gets acquainted with the larger Medina family, including the widow of the youngest Medina in his crew, and they immediately take a shine to each other. I'll step to the side now rather than later and say I didn't like the romantic subplot between Cooper and Ariana. It felt unnatural and rushed, but at the very least, Landman concedes to this fact and has Ariana and Cooper discuss the strangeness of their relationship on multiple occasions. Okay, Tommy's ex-wife Angela is here to add another wrinkle to the story and another headache for Tommy. The history of their fractured relationship comes up as she gets acquainted with Rebecca Falcone, the aforementioned fiery lawyer. In short, they had the American dream, and they lost it. And when they lost the dream, their marriage went with it. It seems, however, that Angela wants to try again. Ali Lauder puts on quite the performance.
Why are you with him? Always gotta make it about you.
Navigating the melodramatic to the point of comical.
No woman who can do the splits is to be trusted.
Well, I can do the splits.
Except you.
Real Housewives-style personality with an all-too-familiar sugar-sweet dollop of bless your heart.
Oh! You smell like a goat.
Southern belle in the mix. Tommy and Angela have a classic, we're bad for each other but we're no good apart kind of relationship. But they're clearly keen on trying to do things a little bit differently this time, even believing that they'll eventually fail. Ainsley has her mother and father back, and she couldn't be happier about it. Cooper shows back up at Ariana's to help her sift through the financial pickle she finds herself in. Whether money is flowing in or not, bills have to be paid, and with a young child, Ariana has to figure out their future. Now, partially out of guilt, partially out of his want to be around and see Ariana, which carries a guilt of its own for the both of them, Cooper gets to work cutting a path through the mess at the table full of bills, and also with a lawnmower through the mess in the yard. LVO's cousin pays them a visit. Having warned Cooper before to stay away from his cousin's widow, he steps up the threat by drawing a gun. Ariana points out that he hasn't been around to help or do anything at all to lessen the burden after LVO's death, but Cooper has.
Come by to help, huh? We're all his f***ing friends. I guess you don't care if I lose the house or my baby starves. You just care if I f*** another man, huh?
And she wants him to stay around. Cooper is safe for now, but this clearly isn't over. The second shoe is about to drop. But first, family dinner, the first of its kind in probably a decade. While not a disaster, it only serves as a reminder that they all have a long way to go before they can call themselves a family again. Tommy has to get on the road and put out another fire, and that also ends in tragedy.
It's not possible to give him CPR.
Tommy and Angela decide to really make things official, and while Tommy meets with Monty, Angela goes to cut the cord with her husband Victor and retrieve her Bentley. The cartel, an ever-present whack-a-mole kind of problem, is back once again.
That land is a distribution route for drugs headed north.
Yeah, they stole our plane.
Well, they want compensation for the product they lost.
When news of the other shoe dropping, the other shoe being 3 guys jumping Cooper and beating the shit out of him in the man camp, Tommy gets to work making things right. First, Cooper's world converges on the hospital he's at. Ariana leaves a meeting with Tommy's friend, roommate, and MTech's lawyer Nathan, who's accompanied by hotshot lawyer Rebecca Falcone, to be there at the hospital. Tommy and Angela stop in to see about Cooper, and then Tommy goes to see about Cooper. Payback is a tasty dish, especially for the audience. The man running Cooper's crew, Boss, shows up with some scary dudes. Tommy shows up with Dale, the lovable petroleum engineer and Tommy's second roommate, and plenty of Head Start time granted by the sheriff to get retribution and the names of every co-conspirator in the attack. And they do get it, and then some. And not just that. All of the men are headed to prison. All of them for return stints, if I'm not mistaken. Don't fuck with Tommy Norris or his family. Things seem to calm down as Cooper gets released from the hospital and goes home with Ariana. They aren't sailing into sunshine and rainbows, though. Ariana is being pressured to sign off on a bereavement payment before she catches a whiff of a much larger payday if she just knew to hire a lawyer of her own. Cooper will have to suffice, and his involvement now throws a wrench into MTech's plans. Tommy is back to putting out fires. The cartel is threatening crews to disrupt business, and Tommy is having none of it. Tommy has Boss, the former boss of Cooper's crew, get together some of the spicier kind of ex-con. So this time, when the cartel shows up to threaten the crew, they're met with a whole lot of handguns as a welcome, wielded by more than a few former dealers and gang members. But MTech's issues with the cartel are far from over, and Ainsley is up to her own business, namely groping shredded Southern quarterbacks. Well, considering her entire arc is navigating how hot she is and how to make sure she isn't impregnated by genetically superior jock sperm that would probably run a 440 40-yard dash directly to her ovaries, that shouldn't be a surprise. What is a surprise is how often they play her up for the camera, considering she's supposed to be 17 in the show. This isn't the CW, guys. The off-putting sex comments she makes to Tommy aside,
I did. I didn't mean to have sex with him. I was just gonna jerk him off. That's
Ah! Stop, please!
Their father-daughter relationship is actually very nice. Tommy dotes on her, tries to protect her, but also lets her be herself and make her own mistakes where possible. Cooper throws the final wrench he's got into Rebecca Falcone's and MTex's plans after she lays on the interrogating and berating seals, badgering him to stay out of the way of the settlement. He declines, urges Ariana not to settle, which would then negate the settlement for all three of the wives combined. His counteroffer is $1 million. With the promise of no future litigation against MTex, Ariana and the other families get a cool $1 million and Cooper gets fired. However, he is, somehow, ready to move on to bigger and better things. Monty is on to worse things. A heart attack lands him in the hospital. It's certainly not the first time, but there's always a last time. There's only so many times one can cheat death. Jerry Goddamn Jones is here to lecture Monty on the importance of family and legacy and how to do the things in life for the people you care about without sacrificing meaningful relationships with them. And if I do say so myself, he actually does quite a good job of waxing poetic like a down-to-earth politician at a town hall. I don't personally know Jerry Jones' life story, and I don't necessarily care, but on the face of it, he delivers an earnest and attention-grabbing performance through the tale of how he avoided making the mistakes in life that Monty is lying in bed regretting at this very moment. Monty listens intently and reacts emotionally, which helps add to how dire the situation feels. Out of all the other issues swirling around MTex and Landman Tommy Norris, or should I say Vice President of Operations Tommy Norris, this is yet another one. The oil business doesn't stop even when you're laid up in a hospital room fighting for your life. And if things continue the way they have, a more direct and immediately lethal kind of fight is headed directly Tommy's way, as the jefe for the cartel MTex has been butting heads with makes some unveiled threats. After Monty was able to secure the National Guard's help in dissuading cartel activity on their leased land, Tommy was able to engineer a fortuitous accident, giving the cartel a gloriously shot sample of American military might, exploding both men and the drug shipment they were offloading. This clearly took Tommy and the jefe, Jimenez
wannabe? I can assure you I don't want to be a menace. Why not? What's wrong with a menace? There's nothing wrong with a menace. Then why wouldn't you want to be like him? I don't know. You said smoke a pecker.
Okay. Sorry. This violent warning clearly took Tommy and Jimenez's relationship from butting heads to crushing skulls. Neither one of them can afford to stop upping the ante on the dick measuring contest they're in, because in this particular scenario, size absolutely matters. The contest has to end, and it's doubtful the loser will escape with nothing more than hurt pride. But the end isn't here yet. Oil is still pumping from the earth, and for now, Monty's heart is still pumping in his chest. Tommy has work to do. Overlaying footage that could be from a Ken Burns documentary, we hear old audio of a man, apparently named Paul Harvey, a historically influential radio host, talking about the role of oil in our lives.
For antagonism between races and nations and creeds. Oil may soothe the troubled waters of the eternal seas.
As ammo in America's semi-soft power tool belt, as both fuel and flame retardant on the rapidly globalizing world stage, signaling its current ubiquity in all of our lives. As several characters in Landman have pointed out, whether entirely true or not, petroleum might as well be carbon. Its ever-presence in our products won't be easily replaced just because we will it so. All oil producers are doing is servicing a demand. Even if it's killing us, they can't stop. Killing slowly is a gradual process, but the end of oil production without an immediately viable alternative is a death sentence, to be carried out immediately with untold war and violence. Or at the very least, that seems to be the way the show and Taylor Sheridan himself sees the situation. With Monty's health failing and the picture of his end becoming clearer and clearer in everyone's mind, Tommy accepts the terms of reality that Monty himself planned for. He takes over as MTEC's president in a room in the hospital with Monty's lawyer and his wife Cammy, played by Demi Moore, and they discuss the future of the business and the current financial picture with all of its rich business people numbers and percentages, while Monty fades minute by minute a stone's throw away from where they sit. Not because they don't care, but because there's no time to waste. This is the nature of the business, something Monty knew all too well. The shark must keep swimming. And now, Tommy wants to swim away from a deal that, without Monty, the Miller family wouldn't recover from if it went bad. He can extract them, facilitate the selling of the company, and set them up handsomely to make sure she and her college-age daughters won't have to worry about money. Cammy declines. This is about legacy. She doesn't want Monty Miller to be remembered as a man who exceeded in taking from the earth, but as one who gave back just as vigorously, and without the massive windfall that could come from the deal, if it's handled right, they won't be able to do that. If Monty's famous luck is failing his heart, perhaps it is transferred to the deal itself, like a tailwind pushing them toward success. Tommy heeds her wish. They will go to the well one last time. One last big haymaker to fell that final opponent before they ride away from the oil business into the sunset. But the cartel throws a wrench in the newly added gears to the machine that is Tommy Norris, and the finale to their season-long dick measuring contest gets underway. Kidnapped from roadside, roughed up, and fashioned with a burlap sack, much like a Mormon militiaman from Netflix's American Primeval, Tommy finds himself in the strip club hideout / home base of the cartel that's been shown in glimpses throughout the season. And it's clear Jimenez isn't playing around. He doesn't care whether Tommy knows where he's at because he won't live to tell anyone. After an extended torture sequence that stays on the right side of gratuitous, Tommy is saved by someone Tommy has insulted Jimenez with on more than one occasion. El Padrino, or perhaps El Patron, but definitely the real Jefe, Galeno, played by Andy Garcia. Jimenez, the underboss, has clearly been making moves Galeno didn't approve of, or at least no longer approves of, and he pays for it with his life. His entire crew is gunned down as Galeno moves through the strip club to the secure room Tommy is being tortured in. Galeno removes the sack on Tommy's head and offers the man a cigarette, which Tommy accepts even though he's had a gallon of gasoline poured over him. And the two of them discuss the inklings of a return to normalcy, of a new deal. Understandably raw after the torture and his extended brush with death, Tommy lets him know exactly what he's dealing with.
Or I go sit with every CEO of every oil company in the Permian Basin, and we build a DEA a fucking city.
The oil business has unlimited resources and funds to draw from, and when push comes to shove, unlimited support from the U.S. military. Galeno, menacingly magnanimous, reminds Tommy of the reach of his brand of criminal enterprise.
We have the same senators, my friend, the same presidents, and we have the same enemies. You and I have the same enemies.
But we ain't ever gonna be friends.
What's that?
We ain't ever gonna be friends.
Oh yeah, we're gonna be friends.
Galeno offers Tommy the chance to clean up and call someone he trusts to pick him up. Because although the sheriff gave Galeno a head start to put down his crew, they certainly can't hang around for selfies. Police lights offer some illumination as Tommy pulls a phone, not a snake, out of his boot. Trusted and like-minded friend Dale, who provided a much-needed comic relief throughout the season, picks him up. In the truck, making yet another lonely commute through the sterile and empty Texas landscape, except this time in darkness, Dale asks Tommy where he's at mentally. And Tommy says something I thought was interesting, and I will circle back to address it at the very end. Tommy refuses the hospital for a hand that should be pretty fucked, as Jimenez, during the torture sequence, struck his hand with a 16-ounce hammer while it was tied down to the arm of the torture chair. But they wrap it up and Tommy sleeps off the torture on the couch in the living room. When Angela sees him, he tries to play it off as him having been in a wreck, the best excuse he's got. But from the concerned and angry tears in her eyes, it's pretty clear she's not buying it. Tommy finally lets her know that there are things about his work that he will simply never tell her. But as consolation, he lets her know that his life flashed before his eyes and that all he saw was her. Things seem like they could be reaching a lull for the Norris family. For Tommy in particular, as Ainsley comes downstairs with her boyfriend to assist with breakfast, and Tommy goes outside for a bit of fresh air. But as he and the camera lazily focus on the scenery past the fence, Tommy sees a coyote. This calls back to an earlier episode in the season, where his neighbor kills a coyote while he reflects on the nature of the business and Monty's failing health. And when he asks her, she claims it's because the coyotes are a danger to her pets. And with the ongoing story beats that have been boiling in the crock pot in the background, like his son Cooper consolidating small-time leases from mostly empty wells in the very land MTex's new make-or-break deal rests upon, that momentary sense of calm the show allows is disrupted again. The truth is, Monty's health is no longer failing. It has seemingly failed, and for the last time. And as Tommy watches the coyote go near what looks like the corpse of another coyote, Tommy says,
"You better run, buddy. They kill coyotes around here."
While Tommy watched from his manicured side of the fence, from inside suburbia, rapidly expanding out like the universe during the Big Bang, encroaching on and pacifying the nature that exists on the other side, the show not so subtly wants us to know Tommy saw that coyote in himself. While he lived in manicured conformity at home, complete with a $200,000 makeover courtesy of his ex-wife, who is also his new girlfriend. The truth of that life is more complicated. The oil business is still the Wild West. No matter how many permits, no matter how many OSHA standards, lawyers, contracts, banks, prospectors, engineers, and politicians are involved, the truth is what lies beyond the fence. The coyote in Tommy is both in danger and a danger to his life. It can't really be around the pets, no matter how he fences it in. That delicate balance, the freedom, the free market, shall we say, that the coyote lives in is always at war with the stretching, homogeneous, safe picture of the American dream on the other side. It allows for that picture to exist at Landman and the oil business at large through boomtowns. The very name of the podcast Landman is based on, but it also threatens that same thing. The gamble is different for businesses than it is for working folks. They pay not in blood, but through the devastated livelihoods of those that work for them when they lose. The explosive power that capitalism provides is also a danger, especially for those close to the source. Now, once again, Tommy is in control of making dreams come true. He's not just a landman anymore. The gamble he's about to take must surely bring up memories of the last time he was in this position and how it destroyed his life. So, in the truck, when Dale asks about where he's at mentally, and Tommy says,
"I think I'm gonna start drinking again."
I think it's a lot more vague and slippery of a statement to pin down than at first glance. Will the stress and pressures of this upcoming job cause Tommy to lapse on his sobriety? Because, as is brought up in the show, he hasn't had anything more than a beer, which is basically water to a lot of these guys, in years. Or is it more symbolic? Does that mean that he might be becoming the man that he was back when he was drinking? We certainly don't know for sure, and only time in season 2 will tell. Even with all the lectures, the mostly dud of a side plot they gave his daughter Ainsley, and to an extent his wife, Landman is a show worth watching. If they could steer clear of the soapy nonsense and get back to the possibly overdone medical drama style action of the business itself, season 2 will be a treat I'll certainly tune in for. I'll see you fine folks later, but definitely not in the oil patch.